Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, Sow, Grow, Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of Sow, Grow, Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Are you a nonprofit professional who's feeling overwhelmed and burnt out? Well, welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast. I am your host, Haley Cooper. On this podcast, we will share stories of leadership, courage, and empathy that'll help you learn to take care of yourself, your staff, organization, and community. You will hear from nonprofit leaders who have been in your shoes and have learned best practices to raise more revenue and make a greater impact. Let's thrive together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lead with Heart podcast. I am very honored today to have Rob Webb from Rob Webb and Associates on the podcast today. We just had a little offline conversation, and I know that we are going to bring a lot of goodness to this conversation, and you will learn a lot. His firm is a multidiscipline management consulting firm specializing in public affairs programs, nonprofit fundraising solutions, and aquatic education. It was founded in 1985 as an aquatic service by the president and CEO, Rob Webb. The firm originally provided contract lifeguard services and aquatic instruction to the U.S. Navy and other aquatic venues. In 1995, nonprofit fundraising and public affairs services were added to the company to become known as RM Webb Associates. Rob Webb earned his certified fundraising executive in 2000 and has over 35 years of experience in philanthropic development, government relations, nonprofit management, and aquatics. Well, thank you so much, Rob, for being here.
Thank you, Haley. What an honor. You made me feel real old after listening to all that stuff I've done. But I am so honored to be here and you developing young leaders in this nonprofit industry. That's what we need.
Well, thank you. I always love to ask this question before we get into the nitty gritty of fundraising and nonprofit leadership. Tell me a little bit more about your background and what led you to building out your consulting firm and where it is today.
Well, I am an accidental fundraiser. I started with the YMCA of Greater Long Beach, and I worked for YMCA of Metropolitan Los Angeles for 15 years back in the 80s. I got started, and I was a swim coach and aquatic director. And the executive director that hired me, a guy named Ron Kepler, told me that if I'm going to be a successful YMCA director, I have to become an expert at what they called the annual sustaining campaign back then. And I promptly told him I don't want to be a fundraiser. I'm a swim coach and you guys do all that stuff and I'll spend the money. But I had become very involved as a staff person as I grew through the ranks at the YMCA. Everybody has a job that's a staff person. They all have a part. They look at the annual fundraising campaign as an adult leadership program for their board members, for their volunteers, just as important as going to camp and Indian guides and swim lessons. Interestingly enough, 20 years later, I was a CFRE and I was speaking at an AFP conference in, I think it was St. Louis. And I'm talking about Long Beach and the YMCA. And this guy walks up and he looks familiar. I look down, he's same wingtips and dressed the same. And I go, oh my gosh, you're Ron Kepler. You're the guy that hired me 20 years ago and made me a fundraiser. I don't know if I want to punch you or hug you. I don't know that anybody raises their children to grow up and be fundraisers. Except for maybe me. My son's a fundraiser.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. And yeah, I think I fell into fundraising and nonprofits. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And nonprofits you don't learn about as a career in high school, right? You learn about becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor, becoming whatever it is. But you rarely hear about growing up to become a nonprofit professional. And I know now that in college, at least, there are more opportunities to study what it means to be a nonprofit professional. But a lot of times you have to live the experience. It can't just be the education that you're provided.
Yeah, my ex-wife, Danya, went back to school and got her master's degree in philanthropy at Bay Path College. But I tell you, all that stuff's great, but you really got to do it and be a leader in it and have a passion for it and have a passion for the people that we're helping. There's some organizations that I couldn't work for just because I'm not passionate about their mission. Not that it's a bad thing. I need to work for an organization where I get up every day motivated and passionate to go help those people and develop leaders. And it's my thing. I guess some people can go out and be a fundraiser for anything.
Yeah, I always had when I was interviewing early on in my career, and I have worked mostly in human services, and I always remember having interviews with higher ed. And there were always awkward conversations because in the room, they could clearly tell that I was passionate about human services. And so it wasn't a good fit because, yes, I could go ask people for money, but the passion is so important. You have to believe in the cause. And obviously, I believe in higher education, but, my heart was lying in human services.
Yeah, like I said, some fundraisers can go out and work for the arts one week and work for human services another week in higher ed. As a consultant, I guess that's what we do. But I really get rewarded by working with nonprofits that align deeply with my heart. I've lived for the last 7 years in Maui, Hawaii. I'm just moving back to California right now. But in Maui, Hawaii, I'm working with groups like the Maui Ocean Center Marine Institute that saves and has a turtle hospital and things like that they're building. These are things near and dear to my heart as a waterman, that somebody loves aquatics, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, you put the fun in fundraising, right?
Thank you. We should always be having fun in fundraising. I wrote an article about, I think you read it, when we look at fundraising as drudgery. And I have been in boardrooms where the executive director looks around and says, okay, everybody, take out your checkbook again. It's time to make that annual donation. And if you can't have fun, if you can't have a culture of abundance and not look at fundraising at drudgery, we're doing something wrong, because this is a great opportunity to develop relationships with people that want to help this world. What about somebody that has a better job than us?
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I've been in boardrooms like that too. And those are my favorite boardrooms to be in. I do love the boards that are very passionate, but there's opportunity there. And like you said, to turn their mindset around and building that culture of philanthropy and culture of abundance. So I would love to know, everyone has a different definition of what a culture of philanthropy is or culture of abundance. So and I read your article, obviously, so I get a little bit of your insight, and we'll share that in the show notes. But what is your idea, or what is your definition of a culture of philanthropy?
It's something where, let's start with the culture of charity, where a donation is a transaction, and it could be selling a hot dog if you're a hot dog vendor or something. Obviously, you might be passionate about that hot dog, right? But that donor, right now in Maui, Hawaii, we just experienced the worst wildfires in modern U.S. history. And there are a lot of people that are making a donation to the Red Cross and many other very worthy organizations. They have no intention of becoming involved with that organization and continue in volunteering for that organization. That is the definition of charity. Hey, there's a need. I'm going to write a check. God bless them. We need that. Now, taking that culture of charity, we want to involve everybody from the executive director to the person cleaning the toilets. Sometimes that's the same person. And everybody in that organization that works there, that's a volunteer, needs to participate in that culture of philanthropy, needs to realize it's up to, I'm first level, I need to be caring about the people that come in that we're providing service for. I need to help my donors achieve their goals. They have goals for writing the check, and it may just very well be that their goal is to write a check and never hear from you again. My goal is to, of course, take those donors, develop that relationship, get them out of what I call that passive level of giving, where you're mailing a check for direct mail or you're responding to an email or something like that. And that is great for cultivation. We need to be doing that. But as soon as we take those people, that guy that writes you a $100 check, If we sit down with that man or woman or family and ask them, gosh, could you make that monthly? And now it's a $1,200 donation. And get involve them in the organization, find out what their passions are, get them involved in volunteering. Now, like I said, within the YMCA, there's people that I started in 1981 with that were board members and had their kids in Indian Guides. They are still involved in that organization 40 something years later, still board members, still volunteers, part of the Wiseman's Club. They're out hammering, they're old men hammering nails on Christmas trees now at Christmas time on the lot. And the YMCA did a very good job of taking those people and keeping them active in the organization for their entire lifetime. At the end of the day, they've got to give part of their estate to somebody. And we just happen to have this Plan Giving Recognition Society that we encourage them to become a member of so they can do that.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs, helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. Yeah, I love that. And I love that this culture of philanthropy, not to put words in your mouth, but really is about that longevity and helping donors realize their legacy through your organization. And I'm not super familiar with plan giving. That's not my area of expertise, but I would love to know a little bit more about what that plan giving society looked like and how you approach that.
Once again, the YMCA did an excellent model with the Heritage Club. And I'm like you, I took my CFRE 2000, I took the test. I can't remember what a CRUT and a crutch is and all those plan giving vehicles. And that's why part of that, whatever that Plan Giving Recognition Society that you have, we want to encourage you to become members of that. And we want to get a committee of volunteers that are in that financial industry that are setting up these plan giving vehicles for the donors and let them be the experts and advise people. What I want is to create a club where everybody from the board chair down to the longtime donors, everybody wants to be a member of this club. And every Plan Giving Recognition Society is a little different, but I think you should be able to join by making a cash gift, by naming the organization and an insurance policy or a part of your will. We want a lot of reasons for people to come and join this because now they are a member of this club and now they get education on all these great things that can help them plan their estates and take care of their families and take care of their philanthropic priorities. And right, all of our goal, everybody here our goal is to get those donors to make us one of the top 2 or 3 philanthropic priorities that they do all year. And yep, keep going.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think one of the things that we talk about on this podcast, we were talking about before, and you have articles about this, is one of the things that impact that longevity, that sustainability is staff turnover. And we all know that, and even in your article, you cite that development professionals leave their jobs every 16 to 18 months.
On average.
On average. Some stay longer.
Yeah, I think every town has that one nonprofit that churns and burns through employees, and they're always hiring a new development director, and you see them constantly advertising on Indeed for the same job. And you go through, once you've been around there for a while, you start looking at one nonprofit and go, my gosh, those people are looking for a development director again. And that is unfortunately a systemic problem that we have in this industry. It seems to me that we all need to be making a conscious choice to support our employees, to invest in our employees. When I first got that job, I was like 19, 20 years old. I had long curly hair out to here. I'm the swim coach. That executive director looked at me and he says, you're going to be worth your salt and be a nonprofit fundraiser. He taught me everything there was to know about that and made me an expert. And it just turns out that the YMCA creates a lot of consultants because of that. That culture is just so ingrained within everything they do. Like I said, their annual campaign is considered an adult leadership program, everything from youth in government and sending kids to camp. They're training their adults to be the campaigners. Why is that important that they're training volunteers to be campaigners? If your development director is leaving every 18 months, why do we want that person to be the sole contact with some of your top donors? We should be, as development directors, motivating, training volunteers to become leaders of that annual campaign, to become leaders of that plan giving recognition society, just like we train them to become leaders of that capital campaign. If you're going to conduct a capital campaign in the future, you need to conduct every year what I call a volunteer-led, staff-managed community support campaign led by all of your volunteers. Staff members were humble servants in the background. And I believe we need to do that early in the year. We want to take as many, as I said before, we want to take as many of those people out of that passive level of giving, develop relationships with those people and engage your donors and have them tell the story of why they support the organization, and just ask a few other people each year to make a pledge to support your organization. I like to do it at the beginning of the year because it's done. They have the rest of the year, of course, to pay off the pledge. They haven't made a lot of commitments to other nonprofit organizations at that time for the year. And now our hard work is done January, February, March, at the beginning of the year, getting pledges that are paid off when most nonprofits at the end of the year are running around like a chicken with their head cut off trying to raise the funds. That's a relaxing time for us. We just collect checks and spend the years prospecting new donors and stewarding those donors that we have.
Wow, what a powerful approach. And I've never had someone on the podcast talk about this approach of volunteer-led campaigns and using it as a donor retention to build donor retention. So let's explore a little bit more about the connection between volunteers and donor relations. What role do trained volunteers play in fostering stronger connections with donors, and how does this mitigate the challenges posed by staff turnover in nonprofits?
Every volunteer, every board, every organization has a ton of volunteers that are passionate about the organization, but they don't want to raise money. And we talked about putting the fun back in fundraising. Fundraising should be fun. The YMCA did a very good job of taking their volunteers and making a fun, kind of little bit competitive annual campaign. In Long Beach, way back in the day, we were raising almost $1 million with 5 YMCAs, LA Metro. I became an expert in what YMCA back in the 80s. They had this book called the Red Book, and it was their fundraising manual. It was a big 3-ring binder with stuff that some mentors of mine wrote all the years to explain. And everything down to how do you recruit the volunteer? What is the job description of the volunteer? Everything was in it. And I didn't want to become an expert in it. It was just something I had to do in the wintertime until I could start. Summertime programs could come around again in the swimming pool. Once you're involving your volunteers at this level, and really all the volunteer is doing is going out, talking to people in the community, telling their own individual story of why this organization that they're on the board of or that they volunteer for is important to them, why they make a pledge and why they make an annual gift, and ask others to give at somewhere around that same level of giving, right? Because if I'm given $500 a year, it really is hard for me to go ask somebody else for $50,000. But if I'm given $50,000, I can sit down with my friends and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm passionate about it. Would you please join me and also give $50,000? And we'll make a pledge now. You can be paid any time in the year. Now, if that donor says no, that's okay, because we have given them the best form of advertising for our organization there is. Word of mouth advertising from a volunteer who's passionate and gives their own money. Think about that. Now we got a cadre of volunteers every year for a month out in the community telling their story of why they support this organization. It just so happens it's going to raise a lot of money when you do this. But even if it doesn't, we've done a valuable service with the word of mouth advertising. Now, if you take a look at that staff turnover, those staff people become mentors and coaches to these volunteers. That volunteer, he may have the development director right by his side when he makes the asking. As they become more better at this, they may do it on their own. So if the development director changes every 3 years, the organization is continuing their fundraising efforts. They've created a system that's in place where the volunteers know exactly what they're going to do. Insert XYZ development director into that, bring them up to speed, and they're able to continue to keep the balls in the air and keep that thing running. These volunteers typically are going to be around and see a lot of us come and go.
Yeah, what a powerful way, like you said, the most powerful way is to have your volunteers become ambassadors and askers on behalf of your organization. I think that's the K Sprinkle Grace way, the AAA way. But that's such a powerful way to have word of mouth and add that credibility to the organization where people are going out on your behalf and asking. When it comes to asking, at least in my experience, a lot of board members shy away from fundraising because they do not like the ask.
They don't.
They have this idea, and I think this comes from that culture of charity where it is transactional. And it can be awkward to ask for money. I've had Ria Wong on my podcast, and many people talk about the money mindset. So we all have our own ideas of money, but I would love to know how you empower volunteers to make that ask and overcome the fears of what comes up when they want to shy away from fundraising because they don't like the word ask.
Yeah, Mark Victor Hansen, guy who wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books and a lot of leadership books I love, just recently wrote a book called Ask, The Bridge to Your Destiny or something like that. We don't get what we don't ask for. And for a volunteer, they've got to make a mental decision that their love and passion for their organization is greater than their fear of asking. And us as the staff members, the directors behind the scenes that are motivating and training them need to make it fun. One of the most fun campaigns I've ever had in my life, and this is the very first campaign I worked on when I left the YMCA in 1995, and that was for the American Red Cross. And at that time, American Red Cross never went out fundraising. I spoke with Liz McGovern in Maui after the fires. She's the national director of Red Cross. And she says that United Way money that we got back then was like a drug. And we didn't fundraise, we just took the drug. Well, the United Way had a scandal back then. They were unable to fulfill their obligation to those agencies like the Red Cross that they've always given to. The Red Cross had to go out and raise money. And so they hired me at the Greater Long Beach chapter. They hired my good friend and mentor, Paul Netzel, from Netzel. That was before Netzel and Associates, and now Netzel Grigsby Associates. He had the LA chapter. And Paul and I got together, and basically we took that YMCA Red Book, we painted it white and put Red Cross on it, and the Chairman's Roundtable level of giving became the Clara Barton level of giving. Those volunteers that first year in 95, they knew they had to go out and do something. They knew they had to ask. Their backs were up against the wall. They couldn't fulfill their mission if they didn't. And we made it fun. Those people dressed me up for the kickoff dinner of their annual campaign. They dressed me up as Clara Barton. And which I've never, I don't know that I want to admit as a consultant that I have appeared as a consultant in drag before. But they dressed me as Clara Barton. We had so much fun. All of those people went out. Now, were they all successful at giving the gift? No. Getting a gift when they asked? No. Were they scared? Yeah. Were they empowered after they did it and realized that this is part of being a leader? We need to teach our children to ask for what we want. And asking for what you want isn't a bad thing. Let's look at our paradigms that we teach people, right? Children should be seen but not heard. Don't ask for anything. Don't talk about money. That's a bad thing. Don't talk about religion. That's a bad thing. Well, why? Let's change those paradigms and let's make fundraising fun.
Yeah, I love that. And don't worry, I won't promote that as your main service, but I think it is important that you were committed to the cause, committed to show up. And as a nonprofit leader, not only do you have to show that commitment as well, especially as a board member, commitment to the organization, because how are you going to invite people in if you're not committed yourself? And I think it's your time, your talent, your monetary gifts. It all matters. And you have to go out and be ambassadors on behalf of the organization. Same with nonprofit leadership. I think that's so important because then people will follow you and it'll be easier to invite people into the mission. And one of the things that I talk about and things that I've come across with organization is this idea of internal clarity. So I would love to talk a little bit about that when it comes to empowering board members and volunteers with that message. Because I've walked into organizations where they're doing 5 different things. And as a fundraiser, it's really hard to go out to a donor and communicate what we're doing because there's no internal clarity. And so everyone thinks we're doing something else. The mission stands there, but it's a little messy and you can't really understand what the mission actually does. So how do you train organizations to build that internal clarity so that they can build that donor confidence and the confidence within themselves to go pitch the organization, for lack of a better term?
Well, you really hit the nail on the head of something that we need to be thinking about as nonprofit leaders. Think about how so many board members are recruited. Do we recruit them with the expectations that we will be fundraising and that do we give them a job description that says this is what's expected of you? Or is it more likely that we just get thrown in there? A buddy of us gets together and says, you know what? You don't have to do that much. We want you on there because of who you are and what you do, but you really don't have to work that hard. And we have this minimum, God, I hate the 3 G's, give, and get out. Those are the 3 G's. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay. My gosh. Can we talk about a culture of charity? Can we come up with a more inspiring way to develop that culture of philanthropy other than the 3 G's? The other thing I can't stand is the minimums. So many board members are recruited and they say, well, we all give or get a minimum of $5,000. Okay. So minimums become maximums. And why are we limiting people by telling them what their minimum is when we should? Now, that minimum may be hard for a couple of people. Those people are the ones that are going to be probably really good at planning the party and decorating the campaign functions. And we still need those people. We need those volunteers. For some people, $5,000 is, that's all. I'll just write you a check and I'm done.
Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today. Yeah, definitely. So, shaping a culture of philanthropy through volunteer involvement, what are key steps and best practices in integrating volunteers into the larger strategy? And how does this approach contribute to long-term organizational success amid those staff transitions?
So here's what I believe that, like I said, we want to take that person that's just writing a check or making an online donation, and we want to develop a relationship, and we want to utilize volunteers and find out who has that best relationship, right? chances are most of the people that are writing checks to your organization via those passive methods of direct mail or email fundraising, or maybe they went to a special event. Oh, we got to talk about special events later. Chances are somebody in your organization, one of your volunteers, knows them. And so now we make this an opportunity to pair up that volunteer, that donor. Now we can train that donor to become a campaigner and get them more involved. One of the things I love is when we put staff campaigns together. And a lot of times I like to get the person who would chair that staff campaign should not be the executive director. It should be the receptionist, probably somebody that's on the lower in that org chart, and have them be the director of the staff campaign. And we go out and we get pledges from all the staff. And some may not want to give. That's great. But we're going to give everybody an opportunity to tell them that their contribution is important and ask them if they would like to make a pledge to the organization led by that person. I love it when the receptionist is going to the CEO and the executive director and discussing what their gift is going to be for that year. Now, then we get to go to the board of directors and say, my gosh, look at when they start talking about their giving and the board giving. And say, well, the staff just finished their component of this campaign. And I think a lot of times board members are like, wow, if the staff can raise and give that much money, I need to step up my game. And involving people in everything at that level, taking donors, showing them how they can be a part of serving the mission and realizing their time and talent, all that stuff's important. But without that third T, their treasure and their money, we can't pay the bills. We can't do our mission. And rather than make this a necessary evil, make this an opportunity where, gosh, I get to go out and share with some leaders in this community what this organization's doing and ask them to get. Now it's getting competition, right? How fun is that? Oh, wow, you think you raised 30,000 over there? Come on, I can raise 50. And they get into competition with each other. I did this for the YMCA as a staff member. After I left the Y and I was a consultant, when I was a city councilman in Long Beach, I came back and I chaired the YMCA's branch campaign. What a fun opportunity. They say that elected officials and those people, they really can't fundraise. Oh, they can fundraise quite well. If you train them and get them involved in the program, they have a lot of access. And I think, did I answer your question there? I went off on a tangent.
Yes, you did. But when it comes to training, so you talked a little bit earlier about, and this is my experience being on boards. I've only been onboarded by 2, and I've been on about 6 boards. And most of these are membership organizations. So fundraising really isn't an expectation. It's more about bringing members in. But that was never clearly communicated or built into my expectations, except for like at a board retreat. And it's like, how do we want to recruit more board members or members to our chapter? So what kind of training do you suggest? And it's not just a one-time training, right? Like it has to be ongoing.
Yeah,
so how do you coach?
It's a culture.
So how do you coach nonprofits to continually train their volunteers on this idea of fundraising?
Well, it just so happens I wrote a training manual, and it is something we'll take every volunteer from board members to staff members become volunteers when it comes to fundraising. Certainly, given money isn't part of their job. And we sit down and we role model that we use the telephone to set up the meeting. We don't use and it's the sales training stuff, right? A lot of these people, a lot of the salesmen, they go, oh, this is easy. I get it. And a lot of leaders, community leaders just do this naturally. But we use the telephone to set up the meeting. We don't take the pledge card. We don't mail it to the person and say, hey, would you fill this out and come back? We schedule a meeting. We get face to face with the person. We ask them for a specific gift. We all sit down and network together and within the campaign. And we look at all of our donors in our universe and who should make the ask, who has the best relationship with them, how much should we ask for? They may be given $150 a year. That person should be given that a month or twice that amount. The volunteers, they know a lot of this information. They're golfing with these people. They're members of the yacht club and the country club and the Rotary Club and the Kiwanis Club with them. And getting them involved at that level and training them how to do it and doing it with them. Sometimes I'll go with these volunteers and I'll make the ask the first time. And I'll say, Haley gives this amount. Haley, tell them why you're involved in the organization. And you may be afraid to close the deal and make the ask. I say, Haley gives $5,000 a year to our organization. And we just want to see if you'd like to join us and come in at that level of giving. Also, what are they afraid of when asking? The word no is, and should we take that personally? Does no mean, my first reaction when you ask me to give money is no. And what do you want it for again? Think about it. And no is just, in sales, they talk about overcoming objections and not hearing the word no. And we translate that into being a pushy person. And let's change that paradigm. Oh, you tell me no. Is there a reason why you're telling me no? Is it maybe you got your kids in college right now and you're short on cash for the next couple of years? So coming back and making a donation when they're out makes more sense. Did this organization tick you off back in the day? We talked about Red Cross was my first client. We found out that people in World War II came out of Germany and the Red Cross charged them for a cigarette and versus giving it to them for free. They held that grudge forever, some of them. And then you can explain to them, well, did you realize that was because NATO and that coalition, French and English, they were all charging cigarettes. They asked that the American Red Cross not give them for free because their people are something along that. Sometimes it's just explaining and finding out and listening to people. We need to listen and find out what their objection is. No just might be a standard knee-jerk reaction because I get asked for stuff every day. Maybe it's, I want to educate you and tell you about our organization, show you, invite you down to take a tour of the facility and say, thank you for giving me your thoughts. Is it okay for me to come back and talk to you again next year when we do the campaign? These are all healthy ways to respond to the word no without taking it personal. Now, if that campaigner who was a donor, now they're a volunteer campaigner, if they have a good relationship with that person, chances are, and that's the people that you hate to ask the most, but a lot of times that peer pressure, just the fact that people want to keep up with the Joneses. Oh, I didn't know you were giving that much to this organization. And they become surprised at how easy it is to get the gift. Once they get over that initial hurdle of making the ask is just telling your story and say, hey, will you join me?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to fundraising, it's not about us at the end of the day. It's about the community that we're serving, or the environment, or the puppies or the kitties. It's not about us. It's about the mission. And so I think if you take yourself out of it, it does make it a little bit easier because it takes that idea of rejection. It's not about you. And in a course that I'm launching in a few months, I talk a lot about facing rejection because you have to overcome that mindset. And maybe rejection is redirection. So that's what a coach taught me. So rejection is redirection. So maybe that donor is saying no right now, and there's that opportunity for follow-up, or like you said, for further information. Do they need anything more? Do they need to talk to their spouse or their partner, or look at their finances, or do they need a little bit more information and program alignment to be able to invest in a gift? And so the questions that I ask people who are afraid of asking or have that fear of rejection is, what's that fear about yourself? What's the fear about your relationship with the donor? And what's your fear about your mission? So if you make the ask and they say no, is your fear that you did something wrong or you offended them? But I think on the other end of it, it's also what I've heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's offensive if you don't ask. And a lot of donors don't give because they haven't been asked. And so I think it's an investment in the organization. It's an investment in the mission. People are giving through the mission. Your mission is a vehicle to give. So I think it's important to face those fears head on and view that rejection as an opportunity for redirection and a way for that follow-up that needs to happen, regardless of whether it's a yes or a no.
Yeah, we're going to learn a lot of things from the no's. We probably are going to learn more from the no's than we are from the yeses. Yeses feel good. We need yeses to keep us motivated and keep going. But when somebody tells you no, and you ask and dig deeper, you're going to learn a lot about what, and maybe it's something the organization needs to change. Maybe they're doing something wrong. You ask me, how do we do it with training? It just gets down to the nitty gritty. I have a training manual that I wrote that goes through, has job descriptions from everybody, from the chairman of the campaign to every campaigner. Everybody is led by a volunteer on there, and us staff, we're just the trainers, we're the motivators, and the humble servants in the background.
Yes, I love that. Is there anything else that you want to share about volunteer-led campaigns and how it can contribute to long-term organizational success?
Yes. What motivates me, my goal in life is to work for an organization and set up these systems, or be a consultant and help an organization set up these campaigns, set up these trainings, set up these systems. And I can leave and come back and visit that organization in 10 years, and there's a new executive director and a new board chair and a new volunteer list of volunteers, and everybody, development director, everybody's new. And that campaign has continued to function throughout the leadership changes while you've been gone. Maybe it was raising $500,000 a year in major gift pledges when you left, and now it's making $1 million. And you go to them and how do you do this? And go, somebody years ago set up this campaign, and here's the manual and the training and all the job descriptions. We just do this every year. It's just become ingrained in what we do. All of our volunteers are adult leaders that make this clock tick. And how cool would it be? And how cool is it? I'm old enough now that I've seen it. Come back to the organization and see them continue in something that you helped put together and start. And it's just moving every year, and it's got new volunteer leaders. Now, we talked about campaign chairs and division managers and all these people. My gosh, now we have a pipeline of volunteer leaders. We're watching them in action. And when we go to do board recruitment, it's not a haphazard thing. It's like we've got all these volunteer campaigners, and we see them in action. Now, maybe it's a requirement of the board of directors that before you're the chairman or chairperson of the board, you've been the chair of the campaign.
Yeah, I love that. Well, if people want to hire you or follow along with the work that you do, where can they find you, Rob?
Right now, we are revamping the nonprofitcampaigns.com website, so it's down. Go find me on LinkedIn. Rob Webb, I think it says Rob Webb Nonprofit Consultant is my handle on LinkedIn. I get calls there every day. I am right now in the Southern California area here in February, and I'm meeting with a lot of new nonprofits. Like I said, the last 7 years I've spent on Maui. Let's get together another time, and I'll tell you all about fundraising and being a nonprofit professional in one of the largest disasters in modern American history. It's a fascinating thing. I've got clients in Hawaii, I've got clients in California, and I'm trying to get one foot in both states now. So because I need to come back and visit my family here, but my heart is in Hawaii. Sorry for rambling there about Hawaii.
All good. And I'm sure I will have you on to talk about that. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. We met on LinkedIn. I'm just so honored to know you.
We did. Thank you for being a leader, I'm so excited about the young leaders like you, Haley, in this nonprofit industry that are moving the bar and inspiring and motivating people to do a better job, be better fundraisers, be better leaders. God bless you for doing it.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.